What is up, guys? Today, I'm going to show you how to correctly install spacers on your Jeep. So I have already installed two on the driver's side, as you can see, with some new wheels. The old wheels are sitting here. And if we take a walk over here, we have the rear already installed. And we're about to install the front one. It is the same process for all four, but I'm going to show you in depth how to do this one here. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so before you go ahead and jack up the vehicle, grab your breaker bar and crack the nuts loose. They're 19mm lug nut. Use your breaker bar, righty tighty, lefty loosey. That's on there pretty good. Okay. You want to go at a star angle or crisscross angle. Okay. So these lug nuts are obviously swollen and they are giving me a bit of a time. So make sure that they are fully seated all the way in there. Good thing is we are replacing the wheels, and I only have 3 out of 4, so I'm not really concerned about damaging them. But if these are nice wheels, you want to be careful. All right. So that just stripped it out. So now I'll take an 18mm socket and try doing it that way. Okay guys, so I ended up trying to do the 18mm socket and it was on there pretty snug, but as soon as I applied torque to loosen it, it ended up stripping it even more. I even tried a 17 going lower and hammering that on. That did not work. I initially tried using the socket that actually takes out stripped nuts, and it ended up stripping it out even more. So this is what it looks like when you use one of those strip tools. They're made in a fashion to basically grip on there and take off that stripped lug nut. Unfortunately, that wasn't working for me. I just kept on stripping out the lug nut. So what I had to do, in my case, was either drill the lug stud or drill the wheel. In my case, I had 3 mismatched wheels, which I did not care about. So what I did was I had to relieve the stress off the lug nut so I can get it off. I ended up using this socket once again after I had drilled 4 different drill points on the wheel to relieve stress off that lug nut, and then I was able to get it off. 2 hours later, mind you, it becomes a nightmare and you don't want to deal with it. I even went and drilled it, and as I drilled it, I ended up hitting the rotor which is fine because it's not the actual rotor where the brake pad sits on, but it is fine, and I did save the lug. I didn't strip the threads on it. That was the main goal. I could have drilled out the stud and then replaced the stud, but it is a long and intensive job, so I said I'm not really concerned with the wheel, so I will drill the wheel, have new wheels to put on. If in your case, if you don't have new wheels to put on, then it's either drill the lug stud and then replace the lug stud. In my case, I didn't care about the wheel, so I ended up just practically destroying the wheel, and that was my end result. I tried hammering it. As you could see, all my hammering and drilling shavings all over the place, but in my case I really didn't care because I had these bad Larrys to throw up on there, which are immaculate. And yeah, so the end result is keep up on your lug nuts because they do get swollen and they are a pain in the ass, and they will strip, so just keep that in mind. In my case, I have brand new lug studs all the way around, so I am good to go. There's no stress there. The main goal was to save the lug stud as I'm putting on spacers. I know it's one less stud if I was to drill it out, but I didn't want to run the spacers with 4 lug studs instead of 5. So let's jump right back into it. Again, it took me 2 hours just to do all that. I did that off camera so you didn't have to deal with the excruciating pain and suffering that I had, but let's jump right back into it. Okay, so now that you have the wheel off, you're going to want to wire brush the surface of the rotor, which the wheel sits on, which is this. So in my case, my rotors were recently replaced, so I don't have the crazy amount of corrosion on my rotor, so I'm good there. So I just took a little wire brush and just cleaned the surface. So that is good there. There's not a bunch of corrosion on that. So now that you clean the surface of the rotor, you want to go ahead and move over to the wheel, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. Alright, so there's that corrosion on the back of the wheel. This is where the wheel hub sits, so this is where it's going to sit on the spacer, and then you want to clean your mounting or your surfacing mounting points right here. So you're going to clean each and every one of those. So I'll jump into that now. Alright, I have my wire brush. Don't forget to wear eye protection. So put on your goggles and we'll get to it. All right. So now that you have that clean, take a close up of that. Look at how nice that is. Nice and clean. You want to do that on all 4 hubs or rotors and all 4 wheels. You don't want to mate a corroded wheel with a corroded hub or rotor. That may cause some problems down the line, especially since you're installing spacers. It may not sit flush, so keep that in mind. You want a clean mating surface, and then you can go ahead and start the install. So let's jump back over to the rotor and hub. Alright, so now we're at the hub. Before we go ahead and install the spacer, I'm going to put some red thread lock. You don't need to put gobs of it on there. You just need to put a small amount, and I usually do about 3 to 4 threads just at the top. It'll make its way down, and then when you tighten up the lug nut, then you'll go ahead and it'll kind of make its way inside the lug nut and the lug stud. So that shouldn't have to put a ton on there, and you don't want to apply the thread lock here. You want to apply the thread lock here, because when you're screwing the thread lock, the lug nut on, it's gonna, lubricate, or should I say, move itself in the lug and down the lug stud. So I'll go ahead and do that now. I'm using the Permatex red thread locker. Again, just a small amount. You don't need much. Just at the top, about 3 to 4 threads. I put a drop on, and then I kind of rub it in. I'm not actually applying more, just a drop and then rub it in. And it'll make its way down the lug stud. And then when you put the lug nut on, then it'll do its job, making its way all around the lug nut as well on the inside. Alright, so now that that's done, now we're ready to install our spacer. Okay, you want to ensure a flat surface. Make sure there's nothing on this side of the spacer. Make sure this is clean again. And then we'll go ahead and install. Make sure that's a good fit. Okay, so at this point, now we are ready to install the lug studs. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that now. So we'll do that in a crisscross pattern. Be sure not to cross thread it. There's not much room in there. So I like to do about 5 spins. Grab my socket. Probably have to wiggle it to get that socket in there correctly. And then you could start to turn it. Oh. It's gonna hand. Alright, so now that you've hand tightened your studs to connect to the hub, now you grab your torque wrench. My specific Jeep is going to be 110 foot-pounds of torque. So I'll go ahead and I will torque that down in a crisscross manner, or should I say a star pattern manner. So I like to go, I start from the top to the bottom, back to the top, left, and then right. So Alright, now that you've torqued them down, go ahead and re-torque them again to make sure that they all click, or that they're all torqued down in that manner. Still going in a star pattern. Alright, now it's time to install the wheel. Alright, so we have our wheel. Now we're going to lift it up and make sure it sits on the center of the hub. I may be in the way of this. There's not much room where I'm working. But go ahead and line the lug studs up. You see how it sits? I'm going to put your foot at the bottom. Alright, so now that it's flush, it's sitting the way it should. You grab your first lug nut. Hand tighten every single lug nut before you grab that torque wrench. If you need to use the socket, go ahead and use the socket. And these do not need thread lock. Do not apply thread lock on these lugs. It is not needed. You just hand tighten them, and then you'll torque them down to the 110 foot. Alright, so now that the wheel is on there, it's not moving, it's solid, no back, no forth, no left or right. So now at this point, you'll go ahead and torque it down to 110 foot-pounds or your vehicle specification. So I'm going to put a brick front. Alright. So now I can torque this down. Alright, and just like we did on the wheel spacer, you want to do that one more time in a crisscross pattern. Alright, now we're done. Remove your jack, and that's how you efficiently and successfully install your wheel spacers. After you've installed your wheel spacers and driven on the vehicle for about 50 miles, you want to go ahead and remove the wheel, so remove these lug nuts, and then re-torque the spacer lug nuts. Make sure that they're still down to spec to 110 pounds. Go ahead and do that on all four wheels to make sure that they're good. And then go ahead and put the wheels back on and then retighten your lug nuts to 110 foot-pounds. And you should be good to go. You want to check them periodically throughout the time of your vehicle, if you have them on your vehicle. And just check them every, 100, 200, 300 miles. If you feel comfortable with the way you install them and you feel comfortable with the driving that you're doing and you don't feel any shifts or any wobbles or anything at all, that doesn't feel normal on your vehicle, then go ahead, pull over, jack it up, and take a look at it. It's better to pull over right away than to keep on driving and, possibly cause more damage to your vehicle and, get hurt. The main thing here is to not get hurt. So if you guys found this video helpful and very informative, please like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks again for following my page. You guys have a great day. Alright, so this is what it looks like after it's done. Little poke out. It's 1.5 inch spacers. Looks actually really freaking nice, especially with the new wheels, and the tires are 255/70 by 18 inch, and that's what she looks like all said and done.